welcome to the Startup Grind.
So, please welcome Laurent from Movu. So, Laurent, welcome to Startup Grind. Thank you for joining us tonight.
Thank you for having me.
Are you based in the Zurich office or Basel?
I'm in Zurich.
Okay, yeah. So not too far to get back home tonight.
No, unfortunately, I just had to move to Zug for certain reasons.
There's this company that helps moving people.
Yeah. I did use it. Worked quite well.
Cool.
I can recommend it to all of you.
So we like to start off a little bit from the beginning, but a little bit before the beginning. In other words, where do you come from?
I originally come from Basel. I was born in St. Gallen, which is all the other way of Switzerland. My passport says I'm from Geneva, but my French really sucks. So don't talk to me in French for too long. I can keep it up for 2 sentences, and that's about it. I grew up in Basel, as I said before. I studied business and economics there, and through a lot of different jobs, ended up at DeinDeal, which is probably the place where I started getting into startups, where I actually met some people that are also here now in the audience. After that we founded Movu.
So when you were growing up, did you also feel the startup bug? Were you thinking entrepreneurial? Were your parents doing anything in that line? Was there something that influenced you that made you think one day I want to own my own company, one day I want to sell my company?
Actually, no. I always wanted to be an investment banker.
Okay.
That was always the dream. I come from a family of doctors. So my mom and my dad are both doctors. My sister is a doctor. Her soon-to-be husband is a doctor. I never wanted to be a doctor, but I always wanted to earn a lot of money. That was the goal. So yeah, I thought I'm going to be a big investment banker, and that's why I also joined UBS. And then after probably a year, they fired me. Financial crisis. So yeah, that was about it with my career. And from there I went straight away to DeinDeal because I was really lucky that my girlfriend at the time was working there, and got me a job interview, and she really pushed me hard to try and go and talk to a startup for once, but I was really focused on banking.
Right.
I went there, really loved the atmosphere, and that's probably when it kicked in.
The entrepreneurial bug.
Yeah.
All right. But Movu is the first company that you personally started.
Yeah. I founded a second one half a year later, but that was more because we had to. Before that, I was helping other startups. I was doing some startup weekends, which I can only recommend to all of you. If you want to get into startups, to do some courses, to do some startup weekends and stuff like that. I did a lot of those, and I was lucky enough that in DeinDeal I was able to co-found the home and living part, which is basically a startup in the startup, where we didn't have to care about the financial parts and IT, all the things that actually matter. They were done for us, and we just had to buy all the products and get the website working and do these sort of things. So I was kind of testing it out in a sandbox before I had to do my own business.
Okay. And how did the idea come about for your startup?
Well, like most ideas, I guess, bad experience myself. Mm-hmm. So my parents were moving, and since they're doctors, their house was quite big. And I was still a student, so I was the only person that could do the home visit with the companies. So I did a lot of home visits with different companies from the region, and it usually took, like, I think on average 10 days until we got the offer. And I mean, the offer doesn't really say a lot. It just says, this many people, this many trucks, that's the price, take it or leave it. And you're like, 10 days for that, really? And it was hugely expensive. Then we booked one of those companies, moved with them. They completely misjudged the amount of work that it needs. So in the end, all of us, we were 5 people in the family, had to help. And we were done at around 12 at night. And it was really one of the biggest companies in Switzerland, very expensive, good service, nothing scratched, but just the whole process seemed so old school. And that's how we decided that this market probably needs some change.
Okay. So I think one of the challenges that most startups, most founders have, they have this great idea, they experience the pain, they realize there's an opportunity somewhere to disrupt. then you have to build the concept, and then you need your first client.
Yes.
How did you get to your first client?
We just built a landing page, really, really simple landing page, basically just saying, if you want to move, put in your data. It was just a lead form in some sense, so you put in your phone number, your email address, first and last name, and where you're moving from to. That ended up as an email in our inbox. We then called companies, tried to sell that lead to the companies to contact the customer. Then we contacted the customer ourselves to find out whether he liked that experience or not, what was good, what was bad about it. And basically what we used for it was obviously Google AdWords, because it's the easiest way to get the traffic.
Right.
Not the cheapest, but the easiest. That's how we got to the first customers and how we actually learned what they need as a service. So is it just a lead, or would they rather be able to book it online? What is it? And from there we just step by step took it.
So it was a process of developing the product. You didn't start with your end product. You started with a basic idea. So how long did it take to get from the initial idea to a pretty significant, solid product that you were pushing as a...
15 months, I would say.
Right.
So we started in probably November 2013. We started figuring out how it works, putting landing pages live, trying out stuff. Then I actually, while that was going on, I was on holidays for 3 months, just to chill out before we get into that and figure out what I want to do really. And when I came back, we really started pushing hard. And then after maybe 3 months, we figured out what should be the concept based on the talks that we had with a lot of companies and a lot of the users. And from there, we had to get investment to get the developers on board to really build the platform. And from there was probably 7 months of non-stop work to get to the initial product.
And so what's the tagline? What's the elevator pitch for Movu?
I don't really have a good elevator pitch. It's one of the biggest issues that we still have as a company, and we're trying to figure that out all the time. Basically, what it is a platform where you can easily organize your moving and end of tenancy cleanings. So you can compare up to 5 offers. You can book them online. You have a move captain that accompanies you throughout the whole process for free. And you get a lot of special deals around that, like furniture deals, internet deals, a lot of other stuff that you might be able to use. So we're really trying to make the move itself as seamless and stressless as possible.
Okay. So you connect, basically it's a two-sided marketplace.
Yeah.
You have the moving companies, the service providers, and you have the people who are moving.
Mm-hmm.
Chicken and egg, who came first? How do you build a two-sided marketplace?
For us, it was more the users. So there's between 700,000 and 1 million people in Switzerland alone that move every year. Okay. So that's a huge market. We didn't know that back then, but it's a very big market. And we thought it would be quite easy to actually get to the companies first, because there's also a lot of them. There's more than there's needed, because, hey, what do you need to do in order to be a moving company or a cleaning company? You need to buy a bucket and... or maybe rent a truck for a day and you're a moving company. You don't need a special certificate. You don't need to do anything for that. So we thought it's easier to get to them. But funnily enough, none of the companies were ready to do any deals with us, because they always wanted to visit the home. They needed to see it for themselves. Otherwise, they said it's not possible to make a proper offer online. So for us, it was the users, which is quite intensive on marketing side.
And how long before you were able to meet was there a challenge to meet the demand from the users? Or it was just a lot of manual work?
It was a lot of manual work. I mean, we very quickly started making some money, but on a really low scale. Like first 2-3 months, it was maybe 2,000 to 3,000 every month. We had a very good sales guy that was getting a lot of deals with companies. So before we even had the real product out, we were making maybe 10,000 a month, which is really tiny, but it was all based on him and his network. And then after, like 3 months after we started with the actual platform, it started taking off. And up until that point, I was so nervous. I was dying almost every day, because you put out the platform and you're like, okay, this is it. Now it's going to work. And then first week you have 3 bookings. What are we doing here? And then funnily enough, we didn't change much in the platform or on the process or anything. We just put some trust icons and logos and changed some of the texts in some places. We just did like 20,000 of these things. To this day, I don't know which ones made the difference, because we didn't have time to A/B test them with 10 users anyway. But after 3 months, it suddenly started picking up. Sorry.
And so, from what I understand, at that time there was quite a bit of competition from Germany already in the German market. There's companies called Movinga, Movago, Move24. At that time, they're also raising a lot of money.
Yeah.
Did that concern you? The fact that there was strong competition coming, the market seemed like other people had the same idea that you did around the same time, and how did that impact your decision to move forward with the company?
For us, it was always clear that we want to be Europe-wide, so we really wanted to go outside of Switzerland. But I guess we were talking too long about it and not actually doing it, because probably 7 months after we started, so 2 months after we raised the Series A round, Movinga and Move24 both at the same time raised around 20, I remember if it's 15 or 20 million, but a lot of cash. Mm-hmm. And that basically blocked us, because they were in Germany and France. That was the closest markets, and yeah, that just changed the whole dynamic. So before that, it was okay. Let's build technology that is okay to use. It doesn't have to be great yet. It's just okay to use, and try to roll it out across as many markets as possible in Europe. But then when that happened, I mean, for a minute it crushed our dreams, and we thought, okay, that's it. That's the end. I mean. We had at that time, I don't know, a really small amount of money and 15 people. Right. And there were companies that just came out of nowhere with 200 people. So, yeah, we had to stay in Switzerland at that point, which now, 2.5 years later, I have to say, was not such a bad way for us to go. But at that time, it was really dream-crushing.
And from that experience, how important do you think it is for you as a founder, as a startup, to know your competition?
It's very important. I mean, ever since I've been in contact with the founders, the CEOs of those companies, or the managing directors, we're doing phone calls somewhere between every 3 to 5 weeks. I've seen quite a few of them come and go, because, as you know, there's been quite some changes there, because there were some issues with trust and fraud, maybe. I'm not quite sure if it was. And that really helped us to understand that they're not looking into the Swiss market at all, because they saw that we're too strong there already, and that we have time to care about the quality of our product rather than scaling it across a lot of different countries and really invest into the tech. And we also saw quite fast that the technology that we've built was a lot further than theirs was. So, I mean, for maybe twice as much revenue as we did, they employed 10 times as many people. And we just knew that's not going to be a sustainable business. Right. One of the companies is still pushing heavily on tech side to catch up on that. And the other one, I don't know what they're doing. I don't believe that they will survive.
Okay. And how does Movu in Switzerland stand out from the competition? What sets you apart?
I mean, the only competition that we really have in Switzerland are lead platforms. So what we originally did, where you just put in a bit of data, then 5 companies, or I don't know how many companies, start calling you and try to get to do a home visit at your place. So there's not really, it's not a booking platform. There's not really a comparison possibility. It's not one person of contact that you're talking to. There's no quality labels. So there's a lot of differences. Internationally, obviously, it's Movinga, Move24, and maybe some others that could potentially be a threat. But in Switzerland, luckily enough for us, it's more or less a safe haven, so there's not a lot of competition.
Okay. And that usually people say that competition helps. In your case, you're in the lead, so how do you see that, the lack of competition? Does that make you lazy?
Sometimes maybe, yes. In general, it didn't, because, you know, the threat of Movinga or Move24, those huge companies from Germany coming to Switzerland, that really kept us going. It was an ideal picture of an enemy to have to really motivate everybody in the company. And it still is. But definitely at some points, maybe, I mean, you don't have to spend as much money on the same marketing channels than your competitors because they're not there. So it's maybe a little bit easier. Definitely, it makes you a bit lazy. But I think Movinga and Move24 were enough big of a threat that we never got lazy.
Kept you on your toes.
Yeah.
And what is the biggest obstacles in this vertical for you guys, and how are you overcoming that?
It's a very, very fragmented industry. So I don't know how many of you know an actual moving company by name. Probably around half of you because you've moved lately, or maybe you've seen it somewhere. But usually people don't really know moving companies or cleaning companies because they're really small. So there's a lot of, how can I say that, pressure on the margins. So a lot of the companies really offer cheaply. There's not really, as I said, you don't need to have a certificate or anything to become a company. So there's a lot of companies that go in, do illegal work for 2 years, realize they cannot sustain like that. They go out, but somebody else is taking over the business. So there's a whole lot of black market work going on there, and that's really tough to sort out those ones from the good ones that are not that much more expensive, because then at the same time you have the bigger brands that are hugely more expensive, and to find that balance is not that easy.
And how do you see the company evolving over the next few years? Is there a focus on technology, a focus on services, or?
I mean, technology has from the start been the most important thing to us. So we have 16 developers now in Belgrade that are working on our technology. And I mean, for a company of 40 people, that's quite a lot of devs. What we're trying to do at the moment is we're really trying to expand to all the services around your home. So not just moving in end of tenancy cleanings, but also regular cleanings, painters, gardeners, all these sort of services. And at the moment, we're just testing them out one by one on really small scale, to see which ones actually work with our customers and where it's possible to get some traction quickly. So that's definitely the biggest goal, to get in B2C channels, everything around the home.
And usually when it comes to platforms, a major metric is how many users you have on your platform, but I'm guessing most of your clients are one time, or maybe over the course of 10 years, 2 times, so it's not repeat. They're not regular users, but do you have some kind of metric? How many clients have you had? How many users do you have?
This year we do around 10,000 bookings on our platform and around 30,000 inquiries from moving and cleaning customers. So it's okay, but we still have to grow quite a bit. As I said, I mean, there's around 700,000 to 1 million people moving a year only in Switzerland, so there's a lot of margin to go still. What is, as you said, what is definitely tricky in our business is you don't have recurrency. So you don't get, if you're doing a good job, you're not going to get more money out of the customers over the next 2 years, because he's just not moving anymore usually. 10% of people actually do move within 2 years. So that's okay for us. But even there, the issue is, as a platform, you're not the person that is doing the move. So there's also a risk that the client is not coming back to us, but he's directly going to the company. So I would say our business model is, it's not sketchy, but we have quite a few holes in the model. And we still have to figure out over the next couple of years. The team can't hear it anymore. I'm telling them every day. But I think the good thing is we do know where the challenges lie, what we have to do better. And we're constantly testing stuff. I told some of you before, since yesterday, we have our own franchising. So basically, we have our own Movu moving company that we're testing out to see how do people react to that. Do they believe that we as a platform can actually do that? Or is that not that smart? That's something we're testing out. We're heavily investing into partner softwares for our moving and cleaning companies so that they can actually do more than just our jobs through our portal, but basically every job that they're doing, they can do it over their phone. So we call it Office in a Pocket. And that's supposed to go live next month. And then, as I said, we're testing a lot of different services so that we become this meta-level partner that is not just doing your move, but we're actually offering everything. So it's the easiest to just go to us. And that's a lot of different tests, theories, hypotheses that we have to test and prove. And I hope one of them sticks.
For sure. So you said that you guys grew pretty fast, pretty early on. Was it just because the demand was so big, or was there some techniques that you can recognize? Okay, this worked. This was. What's your perspective on you managing to grow in a fast way?
I think for us it was really cool that Google AdWords is definitely the most important channel when it comes to moving, and that's the one we started off with because it's easiest to try it out. So we tapped into the biggest source of clients at the start. Mm-hmm. That was definitely supporting us because we had no proper idea of what we're actually doing, but it was just growing so fast that we had to figure out on the run what we were doing. And the more tricky parts, like gaining partners like HomeGate, ImmoScout, all the real estate platforms in Switzerland that have a lot of traffic, that could only come second because they never work with you if you don't have any customers, if you don't have a proven track record. So that was really lucky for us that we were actually able to start with such an easy source of traffic, and then only afterwards go into these B2B parts. And those are, to answer your question, those are definitely the things that made us grow fastest. So Google AdWords in the beginning, up until a certain point, and then partnered like ImmoScout, HomeGate, all these real estate platforms, those were kicking in heavily. Then I think after 18 months, we lost one of them as a partner. That was a shock because we didn't know, and like from one day to another, we were just off. And that was definitely the 3 hardest months of that period because it was also low season. So it was twice as bad, and we were running out of cash again. But after that, a lot of A/B testing. So up until a certain point, it was really getting new traffic sources. And from a certain point on, it was getting more out of those traffic sources.
More quality.
Yeah.
And another challenge, I think founders in startup space is when you want to start targeting large clients. You're a little no one coming out of nowhere, and how are they supposed to trust you? How are you supposed to convince a large corporate that you're worthy of partnering with them?
I mean, where we still suck a bit, and we just discussed that today in the team meeting, is we are not able to get big company moves through our platform.
Well, so first, just to clarify, the partners, like you.
Yeah, for the partners, the tricky part, as I said before, is more like you need to have a track record, because otherwise they don't start believing that your product is more than just you telling a good story and being very, very outgoing about it and having a big smile on your face because it's so cool to be a startup. They're not buying that because they're always worried about the quality of the service that they provide to their own users. So that was definitely the biggest part. You need to have a track record. So the first year, there was no way that we were partnering with anybody. And we also didn't really try that hard. All we did was get in touch with them, meet them, not asking if we could be integrated because we knew there was no chance, just building a relationship with them basically. So contact become contracts. And after a year, we started actively going at them with our numbers and showing them why it's good. And we were probably also quite lucky that Ringier Digital Ventures, as like the VC fund of Ringier Media House, invested into us because that just gave us a huge boost in credibility. Suddenly, partners like HomeGate wouldn't even think twice and said, "Okay, you must be good." So that, I mean, in that sense, the investors do matter, right, that you choose.
Okay. And then you were talking about the actual client side.
Yeah, I mean, that's
convincing the clients.
I mean, for us, it was really clear from the start that this industry, if we want to disrupt it, I don't like the word, but if we want to do so, we have to start at the lower end. So the customers that nobody wants to take care of because it's not efficient for them. They're non-digitized, so the companies, so it's for them just the margins are so thin at the bottom of the food chain. Basically, they're not looking at that. They rather not take it. Mm-hmm. So we started up there, and that worked quite well. And now we're trying to work our way up, but that's a lot harder than I expected it to be. So just yesterday, we missed out on a deal that was 45,000 Swiss francs, and the reason was that on our PDFs, it's so sick. On our PDF, the list of the services that we do is not detailed enough. And that pissed me off so badly because that's the reason why we started Movu, when I go back to my initial story, that was what pissed me off back then, that the offer had like 2 points in it and that was it. So yeah, we still have to work a lot on that to have this quality level that people still expect. I mean, a lot of the offers that you get these days are still in your inbox, in your mailbox, on hard copy letters. It works, so we have to do some more there.
And in spite of the competition in the neighboring countries where you originally were targeting, do you still have plans on expanding outside of Switzerland, or not in the near future? Or
if both Movinga and Move24 go bankrupt, then we will. I mean, yes, we do have the better technology. I absolutely believe that. Yes, we do have a great team. Do we have the same? Is our team as good as theirs is? I don't know. I haven't seen the whole team. Do I want to find out at this point? Not really. I mean, the market in Switzerland is so huge. We know exactly what we need to do in order to grow. Why go through all that stress now to try and find out if we can go there? I'd rather do it later on if we see that they're really not successful, then we can take over the market.
Okay. And are you in all the Swiss languages?
Except for Italian.
Except Italian.
Nobody wants to move in Ticino, but I mean...
They get their cousins to help.
Yeah, no, it's so beautiful. You move, I guess you move there and you never move away anymore, so... yeah.
So, if anyone has any questions, just feel free to raise your hand and we'll take questions. Actually, we have a mic, right, Laura? Thank you, Laura. So at any point, if someone has a question, we'll ask. There's one. Yay.
Currently, you have 40 people and 16 developers, and the importance of team is huge. Can you please tell us a little bit more how you found your co-founders and how you hired your first people?
That's actually the very next question that I have. To tell us a little bit about the team.
Very good. Very good.
Good thinking.
So maybe co-founders first. So I was lucky enough that at DeinDeal I met my co-founders, Nicolas Bureau, who's now running Digital Switzerland. That's an initiative to make Switzerland more digital, which is awesome. I met him at DeinDeal, and he always wanted to do something in the moving industry because he thought it's a very valuable touch point. There's so much changing in your life, and he thought we could really well sell additional products on that. Turns out we can't, but that was a great start as an idea. And I also met Nenad there, Nenad Nikolic, my other co-founder, who's our CTO and basically the most important man in the whole company. And he was, at that point, he was responsible for the architecture of DeinDeal, and he almost actually took a job at Google, so I'm very, very grateful that he did not. Yeah. And those are the people that I started off with. Nicola was more like the investors networking kind of guy in our group. I'm more of the guy that likes to stay in the office all day and all night and figure out certain details of a product. And then it was really just, he was the brain. Without him, nothing of that could have worked. And then about the team, I mean, we were really lucky in the beginning. We had good people, not great people. Just really, really tough to find great people in Switzerland for an unsexy business model like moving. I can tell you the first 18 months when I pitched to anybody what we're doing, all of them were going like, are you crazy? That's really stupid. I mean, it's not a sexy product. It's not fashion. We're not saving lives. I mean, any award you go to, the winner of the company is either saving lives, healing cancer, or I don't know, making the perfect jeans for you. I have no clue. No. It's just not. Yeah, if you come up on stage and you say, we're doing moving business, yeah, it's not really what people are looking for. But at some point I just decided, okay, start recruiting friends. I don't know where to get good people, otherwise I'm going to start recruiting friends. And I was lucky enough that two of my best friends at that point were working for a long, long time in startups, one in marketing and one in business development. So those were people that we really needed, so I onboarded them. And it's been very tough on our friendship, but it was very, very successful for the company. And after that, I think it's all about the way that you behave as a team, as a group, what culture you're trying to shape. I could go on for hours about culture. It's my favorite topic.
It is something that we're quite keen, especially now that you said 40 employees. Obviously, after inviting your friends, you one day need to hire first stranger, and then 10 more strangers, and then 40 more strangers. So how have you kept the initial vision, the culture, the passion alive as you grow from your initial circle of founders to your circle of friends to your bringing in strangers to try to impart that vision and that passion on them and to keep that culture alive and as you grow to such a big team?
It's really hard to say. I mean, part of it is definitely also luck. I mean, the first 2 hires that we did, even before I started hiring friends, they're still with us. They're still in the management team. They're amazing personalities. They're completely opposites. They're day and night. And I think that's one of the most important things. You have to hire a lot of different people. If you start hiring people that are really similar to each other, you end up with a mediocre product, with a mediocre team. Because if you always agree with me, outcome cannot be good because I don't think a lot initially. So I need somebody to challenge that, and the other way around. And I think that's one really important part. Start looking for pieces that you're missing. Start looking for people that you know they will annoy you from time to time, but in a good way. And then it's really about having a sense of it's really stupid, but togetherness, not I want to do that, I'm going to do that, you're going to do that, but we together do that. And whenever there's a conflict, you don't try and keep it on the down low, but you sit down together, you discuss it openly with each other, and you fix it right there until this sense of togetherness comes back. Right. And I think one really important thing for us that works quite well is that it's not holacracy, but we took some parts of it, and let's say we have a very democratic way of leading the company. We don't really have hierarchies. We do have a management team, but that's more for the structure of it, not really for telling people what they're supposed to do. It's actually more the other way around. So usually I'm one of the guys that is just getting work that I have to take care of so that they can do their job, and I'm doing that for them. It's not the other way around. It's not that top management tells the rest of the team what to do. It comes from the bottom, because those are the people. They do work on the code every day. They do talk to the customers every day. They are interacting with providers every day. They know a lot more than we actually do. We're just there to enable it and keep the group together somehow. Don't know if that makes any sense.
No, definitely. I mean, it does. There's obviously many approaches, many ways to do it, but I think you hear that quite often. Some of the best leaders are the ones who are facilitating the team to do their job, because like you said, without them doing their job, you wouldn't be able to do anything either. You wouldn't be here. Mm-hmm. So that's very important.
And what we also do on a very regular basis is to challenge the vision and the midterm goals that we have as a team. There was never a time when me or the board or whoever else was saying, look, this is where we're going. Mm-hmm. I had a long discussion about that also yesterday with actually an investment banker, funny enough, now that I think of it. Because he said a lot of people like authorities, so that you have somebody that tells you what you need to do. But I'm quite sure that if you do a good job in recruiting, you will not have any of those in a startup. Mm-hmm. And that's what we're looking for. We're looking for people that believe they themselves know best what is good for the company and not somebody else.
Okay. That's makes it a lot easier to be able to move forward in an agile in a fast, rapid format. Mm-hmm. So backing up a little bit, how did you guys finance the first couple of months?
We were never really bootstrapping. I had no cash. I was burnt completely after my travels. Which is probably a stupid way to start your own startup, but okay. We were lucky enough that actually one of the co-founders of DeinDeal still knew us from back then and believed in us, and he was basically funding the beginnings. Okay. Then we started hiring people, the first 2. On the first day we had to fire one of them because we didn't have the money to pay him. That was so stupid. I once pitched at the fuck up night. You can read up about it. There's a lot of these points that I had to mention that are really stupid. That was probably the biggest fail, because he quit his job. He came to us and he walked in the door, and the first thing I have to tell him is, yeah, we have to fire you. You cannot take the job. So first salaries we could not pay, and then we had Stefan Scharo, who was ImmoScout CEO at that time, that knew the industry, believed in us, and gave us some cash for the next couple of months. So that was basically our first investor before we even had the product or anything. Mm-hmm. And then again, we could not pay the salaries anymore for maybe a month. We had people working in the company that had kids. That was really tough, because their families did not understand why anybody would put their family at such a risk. Yeah. That was a tough time. And then we actually raised a seed series, which gave us half a year of run rate to develop the initial product, and 3 months of getting it up and running. We were out of money just when Ringier invested into us, so they again saved our asses. At that point, we actually had to ask our investors from the seed series to give us a bridge loan for 2 months, because otherwise we could not have done it. And then we went again bankrupt before the Series B, I think. Before the Series A edition, because I mismanaged the money. I didn't realize when we had to pay out the cash to the companies and when we were getting in the money from the clients. Mm-hmm. I thought I'd figured it out, but I didn't. So we had no cash left, and we again had to go back and ask our investors to lend us some money. Now it's all good, but back then it was not. So we basically bankrupt 4 times, and we did not do any financing by ourselves.
So that was another question I had was, did you yourself do the pitching, the fundraising, or did you have someone supporting you with that?
It was Nicola and me.
Okay.
The pitch itself, I always thought that Nicola would have to do a lot of the pitching because he's more senior, he's a smooth talker. Yeah. I thought it's easy, I just put him there, everybody will love him. He can do it in French, English, German, no problem. But in the end, they always want to hear the CEO speak. They always do. 2 minutes talking to him, and then they got annoyed that always the president of the board was answering and not me. Mm. So I had to learn, and it was rough. After 2 months, I had my first presentation in the Swisscom tower because Nicolas said I have to go and do that. We had no product, we had no idea what we were doing. I was talking like this into the microphone. And it was so bad. There was like all of the management of Swisscom was there from a lot of the other companies. I was so ashamed, but it was a good school.
And so any recommendations do you have for people who are looking for funding? What's your top tip?
In our case, LinkedIn worked really well, even though probably think that doesn't. Sure, we had to contact 100 people, but out of those 100, 10 replied, 6 agreed to a meeting, 4 showed up, 2 invested. It's an okay conversion rate. Most freemium models would like to have that conversion rate, right?
And in, was it 2015, 16, where you raised a 7-digit round? Was that your Series A, or?
In 2015, yeah, we raised the Series A. That was a really low, what was it? Somewhere below 2 million in cash. Mm-hmm. Actually, a lot of it was media for equity because Ringier invested, so it was not cash. But that worked also quite well for us. Then we did another round at the end of the year, which was more bridge financing, so that we got to the next round. So we could do a Series B in July 2016. That was, again, 1.5 million, something like that.
How much, can you tell how much you've raised so far?
Yeah, in total we raised 4.2 million, I think, out of which 1.5 million is actually not cash.
Right. So from the marketing.
Yeah. So in the end, we raised not a lot of cash. That's why we were always bankrupt. And the problem is also if you pitch to them that you have like this amount of money in your bank, and with the money that they give you, you will get that far. But actually the money that is on your bank, you're loaned from somebody else, which you have to pay back afterwards. It means every time you start off after financing round, you're already 3 months behind your business plan, and everything has to go faster. And we did that mistake really in the beginning, and we were catching up until 2 months ago.
So what is your biggest learnings from the financing and from the seed financing to the smaller series to the bigger series? What's the main point that you would suggest to people to keep in mind when going for their rounds?
Well, always know your numbers. I mean, it sounds really stupid, but the business plan you give to investors is not the business plan that you believe in. It's just the way it is. I mean, if you give them a business plan that goes like this, nobody's going to invest. Everybody wants to see the hockey stick. Even though, I mean, the minute they open the presentation, they see the hockey stick, they say, again, one of those guys. But if you don't have the hockey stick, they're not going to invest in you because, I mean, what upside potential is there? So basically, they expect you to lie to them. And over time, you start believing what you're actually telling them. And it never works out. So, you know, have two different business plans. Have the best case scenario that you're presenting to them, and have the real scenario which you believe you can reach, and then go for 80% of that.
Any questions?
There's one question.
Who has the mic? Here we go.
Yeah. Have you ever thought about licensing your software for other countries as a way forward?
We thought about it. I think the issue with that is it's a very good technology, but at the same time, it's not yet possible to do it without human interaction. So we have quite a few move captains, as we call them, that are doing phone and mail and chat interaction with clients to really help them out. It's not that hard in the cleaning part because that's a standardized product, but moving is not a standardized product at all. So licensing it out could work, but at the same time, whoever licenses the technology needs to be very good at customer service. And that's just something that scared us so far to say, yeah, license it out to anybody. Because if the quality of what they do afterwards is not good in the customer service, it reflects on us. It damages our brand, so that's why we didn't do it.
So maybe one thing, as long as we're on the funding itself, you said that you did not fund too much from your own capital, so it was always these funding rounds. Now, I don't know if you tell us how much % of the shares are with the investors and how much not, but just generally, as a general question for everybody, should you be probably willing to give out very much of the percentage of the company in order to get the funding, instead of, you know, being left with nothing? 100% of nothing is, I don't know.
I love that discussion because my views have changed quite a bit over time. I mean, when I started, I had 10% of the company because I had no cash. I could not bring anything into the company. I was working for 2,000 Swiss francs a month, so really not a lot. But I was happy with that because I was my own boss. I got a chance to actually found my own company. I had very experienced co-founders. The first investors actually had a huge portion of the company. And if we would have gone on like that, I would not be a very happy man today. Luckily enough, we had a very good relationship, and over time, every time we did an investment round, I sat down with them, we discussed it together, and we always found a deal that I could buy some shares from them, or we put up an ESOP program where me and the team would really benefit from it. So over time, we actually kept it at the same margin. So I, at the exit, still owned approximately 10% of the company. Which, when you go back in time, how much we've had to dilute, would own up to around 25% of the company. So in that sense, I don't think that there's a way to say you should give up this much or that much, or give up more or give up less. I think what you have to think about is how much money will you need to get to where you want to be. Multiply that by 2, and then that's basically what I believe you will need in the future. And think of, okay, do you want to sell the company? then think of the value that you want to get when you're there. So what valuation are you going to sell it for? What's the dilution? What is going to end up for you, going to stay for you? Or if you don't want to do that, if you want to do an IPO, or if you want to, I don't know, keep running it as a private business, figure out what is something that you feel comfortable with. But the percentage itself doesn't really matter at all. It really doesn't. And that's something in all discussions that I have, now that I can also pretend to be an investor a bit, that's something that we see in all the discussions that I have. People tend to be really, really sticky to a certain percentage that they have in their head, and that's what they want to have of the company, and they absolutely need to have of the company. But having 33% of a company that is dead is not worth anything. Having 5% of a company that is worth, I don't know, 100, 200 million, or whatever, that's worth a lot. You have to figure out what you want to do. If you want to go for something very aggressive, then you have to be prepared to give up a lot. If you want to do something stable, organic, slow, then I would suggest don't give up too much, because that will make people want to take more influence on what you're actually doing. That's the best advice I can give you.
We'll come back to your question in just a second, just while on the topic. As we know, this culminated into the company being bought by a large insurance company. How is the experience of the acquisition? So the first question is, in the beginning, did you think you were going to be bought by a larger company? Did you have an exit strategy in the beginning? And then the second question is to tell us a little bit about the experience of an exit.
From day one, I knew that we will sell the company, or I was hoping for it at least, because I knew that our business model, if you don't go globally, there's no way you can leverage it yourself. Mm-hmm. You need somebody, because it's very seasonal. It has a lot of different influences. It can go very well 1 month. It can go very bad the next month. There's no recurrency. You need somebody very, very strong in the back to finance you, or at least to support you in case it doesn't work over a certain period of time. So I always knew that we will have to find a very strong partner from marketing side, most probably, mm-hmm. that can help us leverage the platform. At that time, we thought it's going to be Ringier Media or NZZ that is going to buy us, so the media houses in Switzerland, or maybe even an Axel Springer from Germany or so. You never know. And our whole strategy was built around that. So we started talking to them from day one. We met them on a regular basis. We were trying to get them to see that we're good entrepreneurs and that we're doing a good job, to build confidence in us, so that when sometime in the future that point arrives, that they will buy us. Obviously, that didn't happen. And we were just amazingly lucky that, I'm just going to say, one of the consulting companies in Switzerland, or maybe several of them, started telling insurance companies that ecosystems are the way to go. So suddenly all insurance companies started thinking in ecosystems. And then thanks to Mobiliar, they started buying parts of ecosystems. So Mobiliar bought ImmoScout for an amazing amount of money. Then they bought Swiss Caution for quite some money, I believe. I don't know the exact numbers. Then Helvetia bought MoneyPark for a lot of money. I mean, you can read that up online. It's public. And that's when I knew, okay, we might have a window of opportunity now, because everybody was looking at this ecosystem home. Everybody wanted to do something there. And we just thought, okay, let's give it a shot. And we started knocking on some doors, asking some insurance companies whether they would be interested. And there was a lot of
proactive on your part to... Yeah,
I mean, we hired an M&A company that it's called GCA Altium. It's quite big in all over the world. We didn't start with a long list of like 100 companies that might be able to acquire you from all over the globe. We started with those companies that we knew that might be interested. So it was 15 at the time. And then we started talking to them. And to me, that was really the toughest part. It started last December. And the toughest part was the first 3 months, because I was not allowed to tell the team. Mm-hmm. And so it was tough for different reasons. First of all, because we don't keep secrets in our team. We never do. And I had to. Board made me promise it. And then the second part is, if you have a secret that is that big and you're meeting 3 different companies every day, you need to pretend that you're still doing the same amount of work. And you cannot do that over 3 months without doing the same amount of work. So I basically wasn't sleeping that much anymore. So that was really hard, but it was also really, really interesting. And the first 2 months maybe, we were incredibly nervous because there's no way back. If you start an M&A process, you cannot call it off and ask them whether they would just want to invest $1 million or $2 million into your company or something like that. And then the first offers started coming in, and they were really, really shit. And I mean, the first offer was for $3 million. So we were really, really demotivated and thought, okay, this might be it. We're going bankrupt. We tried too early, and then we were lucky enough that actually 3 different companies were really interested and really started bidding. And Baloise was, at the end, they were not the company that were bidding the highest. But they just made an amazing impression. So from day one, they were on time whenever we asked something from them. They were really, really digital already. I mean, for an insurance company, that's something very weird to say, but they have 200 developers that are working in 20 Scrum teams. They're completely agile. Could not imagine that an insurance company is doing that. The management really seemed to understand what it's about in a startup. They had huge plans for going forward, and they really convinced us that they're the right partner for us. And that's also why it was a sale of the company, but not a complete sale. So the team still owns quite some shares in the company, and we get to say when we want to leave, and that's really cool.
And you still operate independently, so you're not incorporated into Baloise, you're still an independent operation.
Yeah, we're trying to use them in some ways. I mean, for example, what we did from day one is we have a part-time CFO now that came from Baloise. So he's a Baloise employee. 2 days a week he's working at our office. Because I don't want to have the trouble that any time down the road, my board, that is now mainly Baloise people, tells me that I did not inform them about something. They have their own guy in the company. They can always ask him. He's the chief financial officer. He knows everything. Also, we are now switching our accounting from the company that we're using outside to them. So starting next year, they're basically doing also our accounting. So we're more or less integrating the back end part of our company, if I can say so, and just keeping the front end part independent.
Nice.
And that works out quite well so far.
Very good. So we had one more question. We actually are about time to wrap up, but we have.
Locks in right into what you already started talking about in regards to who you were bought by. You said, okay, you're integrating your backend now. Can these guys also help you with other synergies? For example, in the marketing area, can you access their customer base? Is there some increase in speed that you can take away from this purchase?
I mean, we do work on quite a few fronts with them. They have their own real estate parts where we are integrated now, where we get leads from. They have a big customer base that we can tap into. But moving is a very specific thing. So you need to know that somebody moves, otherwise there's nothing happening. We cannot advertise to you if you're not moving. Makes no sense. So we don't get that much there from them, but so far we also did not expect that. But we do get a lot of synergies, like we just implemented a new phone cloud solution, which sounds really basic, but for us it was a big deal, where we could use a lot of their skill. I mean, they have, 500 people that are working on different phone cloud technologies, and we were able to test those out and discuss with them what could work best for us. In the end, we did our own solution, but we profited a lot of the knowledge there. And I mean, a company with 7,000 employees, there's a lot of knowledge. It's not just, how can I say that, boring old insurance guys that don't know what they're doing. There's a lot of very, very interested, young, smart people, also old smart people, that are really able to help you out in different parts. And I'm not saying that 3 years from now we will still profit a lot from that, but on the way there, I think we can profit quite a bit from it.
One last question from the audience. I think we could, I still have about 50 questions for you, but we're running out of time. It's pretty amazing to hear the ups and downs. I think it's always encouraging. I think probably every founder thinks they're the only one that are that stupid to try to do what they're doing, but that's part of why we're here, to learn from each other, to be able to strengthen each other, and to share the experiences, and it's been amazing hearing your experiences so far. One last little part of Startup Grind is we ask a series of questions called rapid fire questions. The first thing that comes to mind is what you should answer, so it's just kind of simple, basic, but interesting, kind of quirky questions.
Okay, cool.
So, what is one item you own that you would never sell?
My tennis racket.
What is your most unusual skill?
I can yell really, really loud.
What's more important, strength, speed, or stamina?
Stamina.
What historical figure do you most admire?
Genghis Khan.
What is your favorite season of the year?
Autumn. There's no pulse in the air.
When was the last time that you tried something new?
Yesterday.
Team or single founder?
Team.
Cats or dogs?
Cats.
Beer or wine?
None.
Your favorite app?
Points.
Good one. One thing on your bucket list?
Coral reef diving.
And if you could have the attribute of any animal, what would that be?
One or several?
What animal?
Black Panther.
Very cool. Laurent, thank you so much for being with us tonight. It's been amazing hearing what you had to share. I assume you're still around for a little bit, so if people want to talk to you a bit. So thank you so much.
Thank you.